Hey friends, Dubmaster Kahn here. Thanks for checking out the channel again. So in this episode, we're going to talk about the Simmons SDS8 drum sample pack that I just created. This pack is based on the Simmons SDS8, which is a analog drum synthesizer from the late 70s, and it was used heavily in Jamaican reggae music until about the mid to late 80s. I extracted everything that I would use, and I'm hoping that you like it. So we're going to go through kind of the pack, but more importantly, we're going to show you kind of like how I made the pack, because this is a tutorial channel and I kind of wanted to make a win-win. If you want to pick up the pack to support me, it's on sale right now, so go grab it. But let's just dive in and I'll tell you about how I made this pack. Okay, so the first thing is we're going to start with the tom sounds. So I'm using this middle trigger called high tom. And basically it has sensitivity, which I'm triggering it with this cheap Yamaha pad. So H tom pad on the top here goes to this pad, and then H tom out goes to my console. I'll come back and talk a little bit more about the signal path because there's a lot of mojo that I've recorded this thing with. Okay, so first you've got the filter, which that's the brightest, that's the darkest. Basically gets rid of all the noise and any high frequencies. So you get the idea. The pitch. And then I think the classic sound is the bend down. So here's bend down. Here's bend up. And here's no bend. So most of these samples that I have recorded here are the bend down, because I feel like that's, the sound. So if you look on the kind of graph here, bend down all the way, more of the frequencies, it's bending all the way from like 40 to 200. So it's starting up here around 285 and it's going all the way down to 40. So if I pull this back up a bit, it's not only did it the whole thing for whatever reason pitch down, now it's starting at 200 hertz, but it's only going down about 100 hertz. So, I did some of I think my favorite sound is this one where it goes all the way down, but I definitely did two versions more. That sounds pretty cool too. And then I've got some random up ones, but I think that's kind of like an effect. I don't know. It's kind of overly 80s. Anyways, decay is the length of, how long it goes. Here's the longest, which is really long, longer than you would use. And then kind of the shortest, you can go a little shorter. That's not useful. So somewhere around here is like the shortest, And then we've got noise to tone. So more tone, which, I did do a couple samples like that, but, right around here, where you're getting a bit of that noise, is my favorite. I had it originally like here, which is like that classic, sound. Click adds some, here, I'll turn it off, some attack. Definitely like the click. I think it adds that attack that you need. Pan's not really helpful. And here's a fun one. Here's the factory setting, which I'm not a huge fan of. I like this, but then the variable is that heavy, I imagine like Roots Radix, Black Uhuru, or like Sly and Robbie kind of style. So, okay, let's talk about the signal path that I used. Okay, so it goes from this high tom out to my console behind me. I'll put up a shot of the EQ that I'm using. I'm pretty much boosting everything. And then it comes over to this console, comes in here, and then it goes to the insert. And then the insert goes to my outboard. And if I can remember correctly, so I got some EQ, then it's going to the patch bay and it's going to the API 2500, which I'll pan to a shot of that. You can see we're getting about 3 dB of gain reduction. I'll turn that off. I think I got to turn it down. So that's without compression. and then with compression. So it just thickens it up quite a bit. Now, after that, it goes from the API back, you know, via the magic of my patch bay, and it goes, what does it go next? Okay, it goes to the VP28. It's out of camera here, but I can see it lighting up on the signal. And basically, I'm boosting something like 18 dB into the Handsome Audio Zulu. Now, the Zulu, there's like a mid-range saturation that's happening. It's like, where here, I'll get rid of, I'll turn the insert off. So this is getting rid of all the processing except for that first EQ. Hear the difference versus super thick and just, it's got some saturation. So that's the Zulu. Then the Zulu comes out and it goes to the BT50, which is a Cappy EQ. So another EQ, and that kind of gets us to where we were. So without any processing is this. And with all the outboard, just turning the insert on. So it's like, you know, right up there in your face. So that's basically the signal path and the outboard gear that I'm using. Now, let's just, you know, let's record some and I'll show you kind of how I did it. So basically, I did it kind of two ways. In the miscellaneous kind of area, I just, like when I first started sampling it, I found a sound that I liked. And then I started with the shortest decay, you know, something like that. And then went to you know, you get the idea. And I either actually I did that, or I just started with the, you know, the right decay that I liked. And then I just did the pitch. That kind of thing. So the amount of noise that I have now is more than I did in any of the samples. I was kind of listening back, and I'm going to include this in the pack before I release it. So I like this amount of noise. So what I'll do is I'm just going to pick a pitch. We'll start around 600. Okay, so we'll start about there. I'm calling this Noisiest Tom, so let's record that. So now I'm recording. Okay, and then we'll do a little bit lower pitch, then lower, lower. Now I'm gonna add a little more decay because for whatever reason, as the note gets lower, it gets shorter too. There we go. I'm going to add a lot more decay. Even more. Make it a bit lower. So now we're at 200 hertz. Make the decay longer. Okay, that's pretty much it. Now let's listen back to what we recorded. Yeah, okay. So that's pretty cool. Now, maybe we'll do the same thing, but less decay. Like a quick one. And we'll raise it to 600 to start, roughly. Yeah, okay. So this is like Noisiest Tom. I'd say the last one we did was medium. This one I'll say is Noisiest Tom short. Okay, we'll record that. Okay. There was one in there I didn't like. That one. These are just examples to show you how I'm making these packs. Is this my favorite sound? No, I prefer like this kind of. Like, that's my favorite. Anyway. Yeah, that's cool. See how that got shorter? I'm going to try to re-record those ones. I can't. I already messed with the thing. That's the thing about it being analog. It's a continuous kind of potentiometer. So anyways, all right. So then the next thing I would do here is I would come in here and let's look at kind of what I did. I used a denoiser, and I didn't want to buy Isotope RX for like $500. So I found this one for $29. It's called Bruce Free, and basically it has a learn function. Okay, so here's the noise. Okay, so you can see the noise here, right? And this is learning the noise profile. Now, boom. So it reduced it. Okay, that's minus 80 dB, 82, down to 100. So it got rid of that kind of the loudest part, 20 dBs, right? And there's a knob here called treble. So if you were to boost the treble, it's just, this is, and then there's a high pass filter as well. So this is like kind of with it off, and this is with it on. And you can, turn it up or turn it down, but you don't want to turn it down too low because then it starts to sound unnatural. Anyways, I was dealing with an actual problem, but I can't really hear that noise, at least maybe my environment right now. But what I will do is I will leave it on kind of the other setting, the same setting that I did on these other ones here. So I had the treble up high on those. Those are the kick samples. So what's this here? So this is kind of the normal 1.3 treble, no high pass filter, no smooth, 0. So basically you listen to it, you leave it right alone, and you pretty much just take the high pass filter out. So that's what I'm going to do for these. So I've got that. I'm going to copy the same one over to this other Tom Short. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is, see what I did is I tried to match the EQ. I don't know. I was going off. I went deep on this. I wanted to like whatever I saw that this was taking away or adding or changing tonally EQ wise, I was using this graph to try to like balance it back out. I'm not going to go through that exercise because this will be super long. But anyways, all I've done is the kind of key. These are all the Tom samples. See, I've got this kind of corrective EQ here for whatever I thought that this guy was losing. And then on this particular one, I was just tone shaping because I wanted to add more noise to that sound. And then this is like kind of the key to this is hitting it with Little Radiator, just because what it does is it clips it. Like I didn't want these samples to be like at 0 dB because then you'd have no headroom, but I did want them to like kind of clip so that they were at like 3 dB. So you had a little bit of headroom there, but the samples don't sound too quiet, you know what I mean? So I'm just basically gonna kind of copy this setting that I had over here, and I'm gonna paste it here. I'm gonna steal this from I'm just gonna make it cohesive. I did that. I did this one curve and use it on every single one. And now I've got this, which I don't think I'm gonna need because I've added more noise in this sample than before. And then I've got the Little Radiator here. So let's see what that sounds like. See what it does with the EQ. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that definitely helps. That's probably that's cool. Okay, so I like those sounds. That was really cool actually. So I'm just gonna copy this setting, copy here, paste it here, and we'll see. How's this one sound? Okay, I don't like the last one. It's too short, but that's cool. I can include that in the pack. All right, so then the next thing you do is you want to remove the silence. Or actually what you can do is you can bounce these two in place before creating the actual samples. So we're just going to do that here. What I did on this whole like session, like all the samples, is I got them all ready tonally, and then I just did bounce and replace all tracks, and I started a new session. But what I'm going to do here, just to make this easier, is I'm gonna bounce and replace this one. Bounce in place, I should say. So noisiest tom, noisiest toms. That's what I'm calling that. And then I'm gonna call that one bounce in place, noisiest tom. Short, very short. Okay, so now we should take a look at these wave to really kind of get an idea of how different they are. So this one here, noisiest tom, that was the sound of it before I bounced it. And you can see that, I mean, apart from it being stereo, which I don't know why Logic does that, but whatever. It is a mono sound. But you can see just like how there's a little bit of a transient left, and then it's pretty much all meat. Same with this. You know, it really kind of clipped off the very top. So let's listen. I wonder if you can even hear a difference, because you shouldn't, right? That versus this, right? You can't, but look at the waveform. There's headroom at the top, you know, whereas this thing, I recorded it a little too loud. I didn't do that on the other ones, but hey, I'm trying to make a video here. Anyways, yeah, so this will sit a lot better as a sample than this guy that's like at 0 dB, like full scale. It's basically clipped. It's, you know, so that's kind of why I did that, is that little radiator, it clips off in a very pleasing way, and like a super meaty looking way. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these two and I'll open them up and I'll put them in the bounce and place session, which I'll just do here. Okay, so here's all the samples. These are already like all done and been exported. So what we'll do here is we'll create new tracks for, I just copied these in. And I just wanted to show you guys how to like chop these up. Okay. So what you do, you right click and you remove silence by audio region. So then this guy pops up and it does a pretty good job of like automating where it thinks the noise is. So you can play around with these settings, but I'm just going to say, okay, see how it chopped that one up. So then what you do is you press Z and that zooms in all the way. And what I do is, actually before I do that, I highlight them all and then I go to fade in and you do one, just one little sample you fade in. Okay, then you press here and you go Z, so then that scrolls all the way in. And then what you end up doing, you want to zoom like all the way in. And then what I do is I just, from the point where you just see it starting, that's your reference. you want the intersection of this one length fade in to go right there. Okay, and then you press right arrow, and it's already pretty close, but you got to manually drag to where that intersection is. Then you press the right arrow, and you manually do this so that it's perfect every single time. And so there you go. It's another one done. I've got a side scroll on my mouse, which is helpful until you're done. And then it goes, and then you keep pressing the right arrow, and you just check to see, are they all the same? And they are. Okay. And then the next thing you got to do is the fade out. So what might be easiest here is just, actually, you want to leave some room, because it's just kind of manually whatever. And I like to do like a 50 or 100 fade out from basically where you can't see, same kind of idea, where you can't see any more data, you know. Oh, and it's helpful to press this guy. That changes the peak to like be bigger than what it really is. So on this, you know, it pretty much goes away. You could say right there, or you could say right there. I'm going to say here. And then more importantly, you got to listen. So let's listen. And then you can click here. I don't hear anything. So you're probably good, because these are very short. You know, I should have used the longer ones as an example, but sometimes you'll hear a little bit of that shh going. But yeah. So then something like that is probably good. Yeah, so then that's pretty much it. You would highlight all these, right click, 9 regions as audio files. You come in here, and then you would say, like, they're already going to be named. No, they're named Noisiest Tom. But what you can do is if they're not Noisiest Tom very short, that's what I wanted them to be named. You highlight them all, and then you say name region by tracks. Boom. Now they're all called that. And then when you export them, you right click, 9 regions as audio files. And then this is Noisiest Tom very short. I'm going to save them where I'm saving my sample pack. Click export. Boom. Then I'll pull that up wherever that is. Here they all are here. You can see all the people I've been working with. They're actually here. So Toms, more Toms, and I'm going to make a new folder, Noisiest. If I could spell. Very short. Drag these. Also, you got to rename the first one _0, because for whatever reason it names it the name and then -1 _2 ... Okay, so then those are in there. Now I should probably show off the actual sample pack. So I've got some kick sounds here, which we'll just listen to those. And these are all different sounding. They're all processed separately. Super low. Yeah, sick. I wasn't so sure I was going to get good kick sounds. Here's some digital long ones. Yeah, those are sick. These noise ones. Yeah, those are awesome. Some very short, kind of snappy ones. And then I went to like the nth degree, like scientifically. I made sure that each one of these, like for this particular tone tom, I'm calling it, where it doesn't have a lot of noise, you know, it's more resonant, different lengths. That's a really annoying one. The 600 hertz is honestly too high. I shouldn't have included it, but here you go, 250. And what I did is I made it so that you could have a whole set in that one length. So we'll listen to that. See, so that's like a section, like and so that's whatever, length 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So length 5, if we go back to the regular tom, so I've got basically 4 sounds. The classic one, which is the longest kind of, it's got a lot of noise, not a ton, but like the right amount. And it's got that, it sweeps all the way down. And then classic toms 2, it doesn't sweep in the frequencies all the way down. It sweeps a little bit less. So like I've got all of these, 8 or 9 lengths long, but they're a pack. So like if I were to just open these up here, like it's a full, they're all the same length. And, you can drag them in and create your own sampler, or just like drag them into your DAW. But here's like this is length 4 classic toms. So 600 hertz, then 500, 400, 300, and then 250, 225, 200. And these would be great as snares too. That's why I made them the frequencies that I did. Because, your snare is going to live somewhere in between, 150 and like 250, right? So let me just close these. That's just one example of these kind of classic toms. I'll do the tone toms as well next. We'll do that same like length 4. That's a good kind of starting point. Love that. Listen to that. Ugh. That's a low tom, man. Okay. And then the snare sounds, I'll check those out. So this is like the shortest. And then the next. And then I've also included an acoustic snare, but I'll show that in a minute. So this is a different LFO than the toms. This is the snare thing. It's the snare sound on the drum synth. So I did a ton of different lengths here, on the snares. Okay, and then I'm going to include this kind of acoustic snare as an extra. And I just want you to listen to, like, if you layer these with a real, snare, like I did here, how awesome it sounds. Man, listen to that. Or you could do it with this snare. Like, that is massive sounding. Without the oh, that wasn't even my acoustic snare. That was 2 Simmons snares. There we go. Here's the acoustic snare on its own. And here's with the 160 kind of blended in. Gotta make sure they're start at the same time. Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, I've also done some like bubbles, in case like if you want to use it like, a bubble. Ooh, ooh. All the like. Here, I'm gonna pull this analyzer back up so you can kind of see the frequencies, the bubbles. So that one's like at 350, 320, 300, 295, 275, 260, 250, yeah, 240. So like usually your bubble is somewhere in the 200 to 350. Like this, so that's why I did all those samples like in that range. So you can do the doo doo, you know. Yeah, I've got some cool like kind of random ones here. Reso long, reso short. See, there's no noise there. It's mostly just the tone. Yeah, and I also have noise only, which, you know, if you were to add a snare, I'm going to go grab that one of those, one of the acoustic snares that I'm going to include with the pack and layer those. So if you get the acoustic one plus this noise sound, it can be really cool if you just want to add some noise to a snare. Like, that is sick. We'll do a little bit of a shorter one. Just, okay, so without the noise and with the noise. It's awesome. Okay, I think I'm going to end it there. Hopefully I showed you how to make a sample pack, just a one-shot one. And thanks for, you know, checking out this SIMKAHN'S SDS8 pack. If you want to grab it, thank you. If not, all good. Hopefully you make your own sample pack. But yeah, until next time, have a good one. Peace.